Hello everyone from Tony, the Scout Ghost. I'm very happy to be here today with Brett Factor from EktoVR VR that will talk with us about amazing things to do. Hello Brad, how is life?
Hey Tony, going well. How about yourself?
It's great. Spring is coming, so I'm very happy, and I'm even happier to know more about your latest developments because you and me have met at AWE, I guess was 2 years ago probably, and I was
It's
able
coming
to
up on that, yeah.
yeah, I was able to try your amazing product that we can see in front of you on the table. And you told me that you have amazing updates to share because 2 years are a lot of time for a tech startup. But let's go step by step because I'm very curious, but maybe someone doesn't know Actor yet. So can you maybe describe a bit about what you do?
Yeah. So from a vision level, we're fulfilling the sci-fi promise of virtual reality, but so much of us in this space are doing very similar things. So our particular focus today is around movement. Call it mobility, call it locomotion, but we make wearable robotics, which got two different versions of our VR boots on the table in front of me here. You put them on over your shoes, you put on a VR headset, and you walk, and you feel like you are actually going where you're trying to go in the virtual world and experiencing it from a natural, intuitive perspective. But in real life, you are staying inside of a 10 by 10 or 3 by 10 by 10 foot or 3 by 3 meter space. And all of that is done through a combination of sensing and robotics and a lot of technological magic that we're pretty proud of.
But how does it work? So how can you walk in real life and not, go towards a wall in real life, or you try to walk in VR?
Right. So it's kind of like we filled the room with an omnidirectional treadmill, but it is on your feet. So there
Okay.
are wheels on the bottom of each of our boots. They're motorized, they're controlled. So when you're standing still, the wheels are standing still. It's like you're on solid ground. But as you start to walk, the wheels go in the opposite direction and imitate as if you were walking on a treadmill, but in whatever direction you choose. And it takes all of the cues from your motion. So if you stop walking, it stops. If you speed up, it speeds up. If you slow down, it slows down. So it's not like being on a treadmill with a set speed where you've got to match the pace. It is kind of turning the knob up and down based on looking at what you're trying to do.
And how does it technical work? So, I'm a tech guy. I'm always curious about the juicy tech details. I see a lot of, wires and cogs in the device in front of you, especially the one that for me is on the left, which is the one I
Mm-hmm.
tried of 2 years ago. So, what's inside is the black box?
Yeah. So each one of these has on the bottom, there are the motorized wheels here. Let me bring it a
Oh,
little
wow.
closer. So
Wow.
motorized wheels, and then there's passive rollers for additional support. But both on the toe and the heel portion, these can turn direction. So
Wow.
if you're walking forward, they're going to be both facing like this. Let's
Mhm.
say that you start sidestepping, they'll actually turn and face like this while you're
Oh,
standing on
wow.
them.
But
And
they
and
do
actually
this
both of
turn
these,
automatically, these ones that you
yeah,
show me.
right. So that gets to kind of like the tracking control side of things. So when you tried it, it was this version that it was actually this is a slightly newer version than the one that you tried, but this is the
Okay.
closest that we have on hand. So it has a Vive tracker on it, and then you had a Vive tracker on your leg as well, and then on your back. So the tracker that you wore on the belt, it's looking at where are you in the room with respect to the center, which way are
Mhm.
you facing, and how are you moving. So that is generating a lot of the motion of the intent of are you trying to speed up, slow down, change direction, stop, what have you. The one that was on your leg and the boot was looking at the orientation of your feet because people don't all walk ski straight like this. They do a little out, they do a little in, they do a little this way. It changes as you walk. And so that you keep feeling like you're walking on solid ground, that data is really important to know. Like, okay, I am trying to walk this way, but my foot is aimed like this. So I need to kind of track back in this direction. We still have trackers. We've reduced the number. So there aren't any that go on the legs with this one. And rather than the, I think this is a 3.0 we've got over here, we actually have one of the Vive Ultimate trackers on our Voyager SE model, which is what this is over here. So yeah, it feeds all that tracking data back and then decides, how do I turn the wheels and how do I drive them to maintain the motion that you're trying to get.
So the wheels that you showed us, those let's say cylindric blocks with lots of wheels, are moved automatically by your system. So that's your magic source. They are not passive like the ones of the shopping cart.
Correct.
So what the system does is trying to infer your speed of walking from the various trackers, etc., and coordinate the movement, the direction, and the speed of these wheels to counteract your movement. This is, have I understood it correctly?
Yep.
Okay,
that's exactly
good.
right. And I just want to add real quick and do it in a way that really maintains three things, right? So one is that it needs to be immersive, right? You actually feel like you're in the space. Another is that it's intuitive. So your intent is driving the motion, not having to apply any additional controls or think about how you're walking beyond kind of the size of the device that's on your foot. And then the other part being from the motion sickness perspective, so not keeping you perfectly stationary, but kind of profiling that motion in such a way that you don't get sick. And we've been very successful in that across, I think we're probably in the ballpark of about 500 users at this point, and very good success on that front.
Yeah, because of course, since you walk in real life and you see walking in VR, the brain is a bit tricked about the fact that you're truly moving. But how can you that something that I know a bit about this topic because one of my first startups I was doing full body VR and also trying to detect in place movement, and in place walking. And one of the trickiest things for me was like detecting when is the transition between the user standing still and moving and vice versa. How are you trying to solve this problem, let's say, because it's very complicated?
Yeah, no, it is very complicated, and we've iterated on multiple things across the years, and it's still something that we're refining even into the next generation of our product. And a lot of it comes down to kind of the bulk motion of the person, right? Like if you're still taking a step, like your feet are moving relative to everything else, like that's a pretty clear indicator. But if you're kind of moving as a whole, like you've planted your feet and now the system is moving you, but you are kind of a pseudo rigid body, that's kind of one of the indicators there that you've stopped. But people aren't exactly rigid bodies, so they're going to sway a little bit. They're going to change their stance as they stop walking. So there's definitely a lot of interesting edge cases there to be able to get that clear signal. But there's some biomechanics sensing that we're planning to add in to the next version, and it's come and gone over the years as far as kind of the practicality of incorporating that will hopefully give us much more accurate and faster indicators of that, and kind of reduce our need to have to roll the person back to decelerate and then slowly move them to the center, but allow us to stop them more rapidly because we have that quicker indication that they're stopping.
Yeah, that will be cool. And before you were showing me also the changes between the two devices. So maybe we can go a bit more in detail. You showed us that the tracker is different because HTC likely has also released this update. But I see also, I mean, your shoes is very different. It's still big, but it's much smaller than before, and also seems you see also less circuitry and stuff. So can you tell us what happened in these 3 years? A lot of things, I guess.
Absolutely, definitely a lot of things. So certainly a lot. So this one over here is about, if I remember correctly, about 14 pounds. So it is equivalent to a ski boot and a ski, but you've got that flex that you don't get in a ski boot. But as you notice, a lot of it is very tall, right? So your shoe going in here, like your ankle is going to be somewhere kind of hidden inside of here. And a lot of this, like on the top deck, is actually carbon fiber. But we were able to take about 4 pounds off going into this one. A decent amount of that is slimming down the structure here to only the parts that really need to interact and kind of lowering the adjustment portions of that, going more into actually like engineered plastics that let us optimize weight better, and a decent amount of weight optimization, like designed for manufacturing in the drive module portion. So you notice that these are actually lower. So this deck height is also lower to the ground. So you don't feel as if you're standing up as high on something. We originally had the battery up here. You probably remember you had to put your foot in there and then we would latch that back down on top. And that kind of made it toe heavy, right? Because you've got this extra little bulk of weight here. We moved the battery back here onto the heel and then added some rubber bumpers. So even if you do like hit your heels together as you're walking, it's a really soft impact. So safety is the first thing that we were working on these versions, and that's always our number one priority. So we've improved safety in going to this one. We've improved reliability, the uptime on this one versus this one. But a lot of it's been user experience, right? So reducing the weight, reducing the height. We added in a lot of cushioning. So there's a nice kind of foam pad back here on the heel and under the straps, which these didn't have any of that padding, so you had that kind of like cinched into a binding feel. A lot of the kind of motor control and other aspects of the control system have been tightened up a lot. So some of the instability that you felt the time that you got your demo, we were able to work that out of the system at multiple levels. So now the wheels track very smoothly. The control system is tuned to match your motion, but also reduce kind of the acceleration and jerk that it gives you at different points. So yeah, just a ton of user experience improvements going from this version, which was the DK1. We had the Evo in between, which is what we went to Dubai to Jitex with. Mm-hmm. And then we had Voyager, and then this is actually Voyager SE, the upgraded version of Voyager.
But how do you put your foot inside there? So maybe you can show a bit more how does the user put the foot inside in the new model?
Right. So got an adjustment up here. Let me actually tilt this a little bit. Might be a little easier to see. How's that?
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
So you take this off of the front. You've got an adjustment back here that you can actually slide this forward and back, and then this whole portion expands and contracts. Now there's a tool to do that on this one. This one actually had a ratcheting mechanism for that. So you adjust this arch distance for your shoe size. You adjust the placement of this pad. You open these straps up, and your shoe goes. In fact, a lot of people step from the back. Your shoe goes in here. You close the straps up over you, like so. And then you put the toe cup in there and kind of push it to where it's most comfortable, retaining the front of your shoe. and there you are. So the front of your shoe would go up here with the toe in that portion, heel back here, and then your leg would be coming up from here.
Okay, so it's you still have to wear your shoes. You cannot put your bare foot inside.
We've had a number of people who have done socks with it. We don't necessarily recommend, but yeah, at least to this point, because of who our customers had been and going to expos, serving kind of more of a B2B audience previously, or a B2G, kind of that idea that you'd be sharing it with multiple people, and hey, who really wants to be taking your shoes off and then putting your foot into something else? You get that like bowling alley shoe rental feeling there. So we had avoided that for a while. Now we've pivoted over to focus on the consumer side of things, where now it may actually be your pair of VR shoes that maybe you'll share with your family or your friends, but a lot less of that like quick turnaround that you might see in training where you'd be switching between it. But still, people spend, I mean, I don't want to speak for you. I know that whenever I have to go sneaker or shoe shopping, it is a major lift to find something that is comfortable and works. So, taking that problem on and having to build somebody a shoe. That being said, there are some interesting companies doing custom 3D printed shoe design. So I don't know, there might be something there in the future of a custom printed shoe that works with the rest of our robotics.
But I want to provoke you on one thing. I remember the period that I was sharing the video I took at AW with your shoes. That was very cool. Someone on Reddit pointed me to some projects which are hobbyist projects with the people just taking, I don't know, some slippers at home, putting some wheels, and use it in VR with some small motors made with Arduino, etc., etc. And they basically told me, yeah, but what's the difference? I mean, it's you can take these with Arduino, more or less it's the same. How do you answer what's more in your product? It just seems much more complex than that. What's the advantage?
Yeah, no, for sure. And totally supportive of all of those hobbyist efforts out there. I think that's really awesome that people are doing that. Like, there's plenty of room in the space for people to come up with creative solutions to this problem, and it's obviously an important problem, right? But to your point of like, okay, so what did 6 years of development and whatever fundraising we've managed to eke out has managed to get us to? I would say it is two things. One of which is we were talking about like the flexibility of different users. So it's certainly easy to do. I won't say easy. It is easier to do kind of one-off implementation that works for your particular shoes, right? So I could build a version that works for my giant US men's size 14 shoes, and then woe to be anybody who's got a women's 6 of trying to put that version on. It's going to be a really difficult challenge. So being able to serve a very wide user base is one of the things that we have been working on for years and years, and it's a tough nut to crack because a one size fits all becomes a one size fits most, but it's still more than one size fits one, right? So I would say that is one of the big areas. The other big area is the transparency of the user experience. Now, it certainly varies person to person, but typically people forget that they're actually wearing these, which, given the fact that you wore this, and I mean, this is the 14-pound version, this is the 10-pound version, but just think, you've got 10 pounds on each foot, which is essentially ankle weights. The heaviest you'd want to go in ankle weights, and there's motors and there's all sorts of things going on under your feet, and people are forgetting that they have it on, and they're wondering if it's even working because they're concerned they're going to go walk into that wall, Are they on? Is it working? I'm going to bump it. No, you're not going to bump into your couch. You've moved like 3 inches from the center of the room. So like getting to something that you can put wheels on and be able to walk a bit, like that gets you, let's say 50% of the way to solving it, right? It's a big chunk to be able to do that. But for something to account for how your feet are angled and how you're standing and how you're changing your speed and direction and all of these things, like all of that takes a lot of, shall we say, finesse, that getting from that 50% to that 90% is a large effort. So that is the other chunk of where our effort has gone into, is how do we make something that can fade into the background, that you don't have to be in there thinking, okay, I need to keep my feet pointed this way, and when I stop, I need to do it in this way, and when I change direction, like how much of that you need to be thinking about versus just, okay, I've got something that's kind of heavy on my feet, so I'm going to take it a little easier. But like that's one of our big value adds right there.
Yeah, it's a bit like going from prototype to product. What we see made by a fantastic hobbyists on Reddit is more like a prototype. What you're trying to do is really a product to sell on the market. And
Yep.
talking about products and comparisons, there are other amazing people which are building treadmills or slippery mills or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the pros and the cons of the two different approaches? Because their solution seems a bit more, let's say, market ready in a way, but it has also some disadvantages because it's not really like walking, it's more like sleeping. I don't know, what's your point of view of the differences, pros and cons of both solutions?
Yeah, and I've tried a number of different slip mills. Like I've tried a Virtuix Omni, I've tried a Catwalk VR, a Cyberth Virtualizer Elite. So I've got a good comparison there to be able to talk to those. And I think you really hit it, which is like, what is your goal, right? Um, it's going to take us still a decent amount of effort. The next version is going to be a lot closer to this for you to be able to go very quickly. Right now, we can do visual speed scaling tricks, which we've been working on and have actually had really good results of not causing motion sickness, which was surprising to me, but also spectacular. But like if you are trying to actually, let's say, run at 8 miles an hour, it's going to be another couple versions before we're going to be able to get there. And there's a weight, the weight of the boot versus your ability to run crossover point that I don't know. Maybe we'll see that tops out at 6 miles an hour. I don't know. Maybe we'll hit 8. Who knows? But from the perspective of you're not really wearing anything on your feet, if your intention is to be super active and move your legs very quickly, right? Less so about like strength, but more so about speed. Like you want that kind of frenetic motion. Something like a slip mill is going to support that more readily. But to your point, as far as like the feeling, right? They've made a lot of advancements in them, but still a lot of it feels, at least to me, like your legs are kind of a game controller for your movement through the space, right? You're
Mhm.
moving your legs, you're moving your body, you're making motions in the world, but I don't really feel like I took a step and I took another step. So from a like immersion agency presence perspective, uh, I don't know what else they'll need to do on the slip mill side of things to really bring that in. Whereas with our design, we've got a decent advantage because you are getting that like step to step motion with real traction under your feet. I think in the end, we're probably going to see a number of solutions still out there on the market. Like even if we go 5 to 10 years in the future, there's going to be reasons why people will want something like a slip mill. I mean, I don't know, maybe that ends up being, again, more LBE focused, kind of how they had pivoted originally, like Virtuix had pivoted originally into LBE. I don't know what it's going to look like on the consumer side. I know they're focusing a lot right now on that, and I think that's a great move. I would love to see these things in people's homes. I think the question there is kind of like between standalone headsets and PC VR, like how much of a setup do people want to have or will tolerate having in their home, and how easy is the spontaneity to be able to access their VR experience. And where we're aiming, I think we'll have the advantage on that. You'll have a couple of these in your closet or on your shelf or something. You got your standalone headset sitting next to it, or heck, I mean, even if you have a computer in the room and you're streaming to it, like you pull these things off, you put them on, and you go. I suppose time will tell.
Well, I hope so for you, but you mentioned standalone headsets. I see the Vive Ultimate Tracker. Does it work also with standalone headsets now? Because I tried it with an HTC Vive 2 years ago. How is the situation now?
Yeah, so they launched it with support natively for the Vive XR Elite and the Vive Focus 3, and we actually got one of the XR Elites to do early development with it. But I think it was 2 months ago, roughly at this point, they put out a beta for third-party PC VR. So anything that uses Steam, so it could be a Quest 2, Quest 3, it could be a Pico Neo, kind of your choice on that. Heck, I think probably the Apple Vision Pro with some of what people are doing extending with Steam will work with that. It's still in beta. It takes a bit of an extra setup process compared to what they're expecting to release eventually. But it's very cool to be able to take a laptop, take a standalone headset, and show up with a pair of boots at somebody's house and be like, "Hey, can I come in?" Compared to what our setup was before.
Yeah. But when do you think you can use just the standalone headset and remove even the laptop? Do you think it's possible in the short term?
Yes, I mean, broadly, I think that HTC said that they have it in their roadmap, but that it is future.
Okay.
We've talked about how we could make that work to both use the Vive trackers and the Vive Ultimate and the headset. And it is definitely possible, and certainly of interest. Eliminating that extra link if we can would certainly open up users' experiences.
Yeah, I think it will be great. And talking about the future, so how do you see of course, we are a bit playing the speculation game because startups has always delays, technologies that are breakthroughs, so you never know. But ideally,
Yep.
how do you see the evolution of your products in the next 5 years?
Yeah. Well, speaking to the more certainty at this point in the nearer term, and then kind of stretching it out to the
Yes.
future. So one of the exciting things that we did, was this past weekend, we started doing user trials in the home, which was a very exciting moment, because that's my passion, and our passion is getting these things to consumers, gaming, adventure, history, whatever makes them excited, but having them out there in large quantities, right? So that was a really cool step. We have a new version of the boots in the works, slated for the end of this year. As you say, startups shift here and there in timelines and what have you. So don't hold me to that exact date. But that version is actually targeted at being about half the weight of this one and more than twice the speed. So very excited to get that one, and that one will be very targeted at the consumer audience. So to the point of starting those trials at home, kind of understanding what are those pain points and identifying them early so that we can improve them significantly. So that's kind of the, let's say, 9 month to 1 year perspective on that, is that this is going to get a lot smaller and lighter and better. Going from that, it would certainly be very exciting to see something like this, and ideally ours, become kind of part of that standard bundle. That I know controllers have kind of gone in and out as hand tracking has gotten better for some applications and what have you, but you buy a headset, it tends to come with controllers. I, I would expect in that 5-year period that our conversation would change to, well, I mean, of course you get VR shoes, right? Like you need your headset, and you need, let's say, some really interesting haptic version of controllers, and you need your VR shoes, because how else do you experience VR? So exactly what that looks like is certainly a question mark, but where it is just kind of part of the lexicon of VR experience.
But so your vision is very consumer oriented. So people at home that use XR have your shoes to move, let's say. Or you're also thinking like about enterprise use cases as so what's your vision for the
Yeah.
product?
So we actually at the time that we met, we were very deeply into enterprise use cases, and I would say what we learned there is that if we follow our passion in the consumer use case side of things, and we build a great product for consumers, that same great product is going to be valuable to enterprise. So rather than trying to come in and design something specifically for enterprise and then build a whole nother product specifically for consumer, we can follow our excitement, build something for the consumer, and then there's nothing to stop enterprise from going to Best Buy, Amazon, our online shop, whatever it happens to be, and purchasing units as well. And maybe there's a few things that need to be tweaked there, but we were seeing a lot of that pattern with the headsets for sure. That it wasn't that enterprise was going specifically for a thing; they were going, okay, the Quest 2, I can go pick up 10 of them for this much money. So I just swiped my credit card and had 10 boxes show up. So I would anticipate something similar in the future for us.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, as someone who has a VR headset at home, I'm happy to hear that. But what can be realistically the price of something like that, maybe in the next years?
Yep. That really is the question, isn't it? And I know there was
Yeah.
when our digital trends article came out, when we were focused on enterprise, people had a little bit of sticker shock looking at it, and it's not all that surprising. So I think what was in that article was $15,000, which I don't know
Wow.
about you, but I don't really want to go buy another car. or not that cars are exactly that inexpensive, new at least at the moment, but yeah. So this version, this next version that I'm talking about, the one coming after Voyager SE, we're targeting very low volumes here. So we're talking like in the tens of units, maybe. And the target price for that is between a Virtuix Omni 1, which is, I think, about 2,700 US, and a Peloton Tread Plus, which is about 6,000 US. So, like I said, very, very early adopter in the consumer space, low volume quantities. We're aiming for something that is pricey, but let's say about on par with some consumer equipment out there, not all that dissimilar from a high-end gaming rig. Now, projecting further into the future here, right? As volumes go up, we're able to optimize cost better. My goal is to get it into the sub $1,000 US. Ideally 500. I don't know that 500 is going to be practical. A lot of that's going to come down to what supply chain and manufacturing looks like. But at least breaking that $1,000 barrier to get it into kind of the realm of where headset prices are, at least most headset prices are these days.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And regarding the price for now, as you said, if you are in the making a few dozens units, it's a very experimental thing still. So I guess you are targeting maybe prosumers, tech super enthusiasts, and even some enterprises maybe to do some tests with you about with the first units. Because personally, I still think it's you should still keep your both use cases because now XR is still a lot of use cases in enterprise sector, so that would be pretty cool. And talking about money, since also you talked about this before, what about the investments? Have you managed to get some funds? Because when you were speaking, you already got some, and you are looking for a new round. So what's the situation, and what do you hope maybe to get? Maybe some investor will look at these videos. What's your
Yeah,
point on the money?
no, for sure. So it's actually kind of funny because I know, at least in some circles, there's kind of this impression that we're a very large company with massive amounts of money. And you also being in the XR space, you can probably chuckle about like a lot of us are very scrappy small teams doing a lot on shoestring budgets.
Yeah.
So certainly proud of how much we've managed to do on relatively little investment. I mean, we ask folks how much they think that we've gotten. Actually, why don't I ask you, Tony? How much money do you think Ekto has raised to get to this point? Do
Oh,
you have a
wow.
ballpark guess?
I'm not very good with money, especially because US and Europe are very different things. But let's say I don't know, 4 millions.
That's not a bad guess. We typically get somewhere in the range of $8 to $20 million as our guess. We are sub million. We are actually
Sub one?
less than one, and notably
Wow.
less than one. Yeah. So we've done a bit on very little. But to your point on investment, there have been the investors that we have been really great about understanding our vision, really being kind of the true believers. They see the market readiness, they see the uptick in how many headsets are out there, the use cases, all of that. They are relatively rare in my experience with investors, though. Like, just even generally speaking, there aren't a lot of hardware investors out there. There aren't a lot of XR investors out there kind of post
Yeah.
2016 hype, right? So us operating at the intersection of these two things, that part of the Venn diagram is a pretty tiny little piece there. So from a venture side, we haven't been a really good fit, and probably eventually we will be. Hopefully we'll be selling a number of units. We'll be making a decent amount of revenue. A growth investor will look at that and say, well, you're making a bunch of money. Here's some more money to make a lot more money. But up until that point, certainly leaving the possibility open that some venture investor will see this and be like, that is some really cool stuff. I need to get in on the early stages of this and help prop them up to the next level. But our plan for the next set of fundraising is actually to do an equity crowdfunding campaign and possibly kind of a staggered set of campaigns. Maybe do one local and then do one with a broader reach towards the end of this year. Because to your point of comparing with slip mills, Virtuix I've seen has been very successful in fundraising on a number of fronts, but one of the things that they seem to get a lot of traction in is equity crowdfunding, and that makes sense. Like, there's people like you and me out there that are like, I would I would give you $100 if that helps you make this really cool thing that I need and want, right? So we're working on building up a lot of the community there. So, you know, we've got a Discord out there. You can find it on our Ektopia page of our website. We've got our social platforms, but people joining in that conversation and looking out for that kind of equity crowdfunding would be really awesome and help us get to that next step.
Well, then keep us updated, because I think what you're doing is very cool. So maybe someone else has the same opinion in the community and want to support you. And of course, if someone watching this video has 8 to 20 millions to give to Brad, can give it. No jokes apart. Anyway, of course, if someone is interested, can reach out to you, because I think for someone that is in Europe and maybe doesn't know, costs, especially of development in the US, are also much higher than here. And doing hardware with less than 1 million is a little miracle, if I can say, because it's very, very complicated to make hardware. I'm a software guy, but I know that hardware is 10 times more complicated. So compliments. I'm not joking at all for what you've been able to do. And actually, I think we are at the end of this interview, but I still want to ask you if there is something else you want to add. I asked you a lot of questions, but I guess I probably have forgot something important, and it's your time to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I already mentioned as far as connecting with us, joining on social and Discord and what have you.
Yeah, so Brad, really thank you for your time and for the amazing presentation you did of your product, and good luck for your future.
Thank you so much, Tony. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
And I wish you also a great day to everyone watching this video. So bye bye everyone.